So why you should be investing in HMOs going forward. Welcome back to our channel. My name is Malkit Purwal. We've been in property for over 20 years. We've been investing in HMOs since 2010 and we've seen a lot of changes during this period. However, we still think there is a massive opportunity for investors, developers to get involved with HMOs going forward. So let's kick off. What is a HMO? Up until 2004, the word HMO didn't really exist. It actually means houses in multiple occupation. Now, the Housing Act 2004 defined what a HMO is. So a HMO is a property that has 3 or more unrelated people living within it. It doesn't necessarily need to be defined in a certain way with all the rooms en suite or multiple sharing facilities. It literally means there's 3 unrelated people living within the property. The Housing Act also defined what sui generis HMOs are. These are properties where you have over 6 people living within a household. So in terms of tenant types, for HMOs, you tend to find 3 different tenant types. You have social housing, local housing allowance, and even temporary accommodation. Now, these typically tend to be tenants where the funding is actually coming from local or national government. You have student HMOs. These tend to be properties that are typically located within a short radius of universities up and down the country. Thirdly, you have professional HMOs. Now, these grew in popularity in the late 2010s as rents rose and tenants required a more affordable means of accommodation. Now I'm going to run through why you should be investing in HMOs. Rental yields. Now, if I had a single property as a 3-bedroom house, I could be earning £1,500 per calendar month. Now, that same property converted as a 6-bedroom HMO could be earning in the region of £5,000 per calendar month. Obviously, this is dependent on areas and tenant types and where you're actually located. Before we continue the video, guys, we've got a HMO Training Day, January 2024. More details are in the description. We hope to see you there. HMO mortgages. Prior to 2010, if you wanted to get a HMO mortgage, you typically had to get a commercial loan and the rates were a lot more expensive than a traditional buy-to-let. However, 2010 onwards, rates have actually fallen and the difference between a HMO mortgage rate and a buy-to-let rate was actually quite minimum. So it actually makes it easier for people to get involved with HMOs. Reduced void periods. With a HMO, let's just say if you had 6 rooms and you had 1 tenant going, you could typically turn that room back around within 14 days with the current demand that there is in the UK. This obviously reduces the void periods and helps you maximize on your profits. You have reduced exposure to tenants not paying. So let me just break this down. So if you've got 6 tenants in a house and 1 tenant doesn't pay, your exposure is actually quite minimum. We've had incidents where we've got a whole house and the tenant stops paying, but we still need to pay our mortgage. And it could typically take somewhere between 3 to 6 months to actually get this tenant out of the house. And during that period, you're liable for all the mortgage costs and all the legal cost that it takes to get that tenant out. So with a HMO, regardless if 1 tenant is not paying, you're still actually making a profit, albeit your profit margins will be reduced slightly. Tenant demand. Spareroom.co.uk has actually reported that tenant demand for HMOs is at all-time high. At Savoys, we've actually noticed in 2023 that demand is up 55% compared to where we were in 2021. Capital allowances. This is actually an old law dating back to the 1800s, which allows you to make deductions in your tax returns for plant and machinery, and this relates to certain areas of your communal areas. But as always, please seek taxation advice from your local accountant. HMOs allow you to spread your risk. Now, when we were running our buy-to-let portfolio in the 2000s, if there was 1 major repair, that could technically wipe out all our profit for the year. With a HMO, because the margins are actually a lot higher, if we have a major repair, we will still make a profit for the year. So please bear that in mind if you want to balance your portfolio. HMOs are a lot easier and cheaper to insure. With the rise in popularity of HMOs, insurance companies have actually seen the number of claims for HMOs isn't that significantly higher than a buy-to-let property. So they've actually lowered rates down, and it's a lot easier now to insure. HMOs are in vogue. What do I mean by that? We've actually seen a massive demand from tenants wanting to live in HMOs. They understand HMOs used to be a dirty word within property. It used to relate to people living in poor quality HMOs. However, this has now changed, and the amount of people producing great quality co-living HMOs is actually at an all-time record high. Plus, HMOs is probably one of the most lucrative strategies out there for people wanting to replace their 9-to-5 income. With all this combined, it is a strategy that you should be paying attention to. So now, when you're ready to actually start with building your first HMO, what you actually want to do is get a consultant or an architect on board early on. You want to understand what type of property would make sense for you to convert. Ideally, you want something where you can actually get 6 rooms, and ideally now, following COVID, with people not really wanting to share bathrooms, you want to have those as 6 ensuite rooms. So what we would typically do is find a property where we can convert internally. If it's not possible to get 6 rooms internally, we'd actually look at, okay, what can we do to add that additional space? It's permitted development to actually go 6 meters rear of a semi-detached mid-terrace house. Obviously check with your council that they don't have any Article 4 directives restricting this back. It's also permitted development to actually extend the loft. But again, you need to consult with your architect to ensure you have the appropriate head height to get that additional room. Now, once you're confirmed that you can actually get 6 rooms in there, you need to work with a trusted builder that knows what they're doing. What I would typically do is have a look at other people that are developing the area, maybe reach out to them, see if they have a builder that they could recommend. Instagram and LinkedIn are a great place to start because it's quite easy to search hashtags, find developers that are out there making similar HMOs to what you want to make, and also great people to actually liaise with, where you'll learn some of the pitfalls that they've gone through and where they've actually achieved the most. Before we continue the video, guys, we've got a HMO training day, January 2024. More details are in the description. We hope to see you there. One thing we would suggest is staying away from the larger style HMOs straight away, because ideally what you want to do is learn from this first project, take on board everything that goes right and where you've made mistakes before going on to a larger project such as a 10, 15 bed or even 20 bed HMO. Once you actually get your property ready, you need to apply for a HMO license. Now, lots of investors, when I meet them, the word HMO license actually scares them. But a HMO license relates back to the 2004 Housing Act, where they've introduced a bunch of fire safety measures. So effectively, a HMO license is just ensuring the property is safe to live in. So you'll need such things as fire doors with door closers, a fire panel alarm if it's 3-story, or interconnected smoke and heat detectors if it's a 2-story house. You'll also need to ensure you put the correct signage up, so in the event of emergency, tenants are able to escape. You'll need things such as emergency lighting. All escape doors will need to have thumb turn locks. But this is all information that's easy to find on the council website. You typically just need to type in the name of your council, HMO. It should be one of the top links that appear. Make sure you read the information in there, because this will also ensure that when you're going through that building stage, you're actually hitting and marking off all those things. So once your property is ready for that HMO license, you literally need to typically fill in an online form which lists, okay, this is the property, this is the layout of it. You'll have to upload certificates such as gas safety cert, electrical cert, fire panel alarm cert, emergency lighting, and any other additional information that's required. Most councils now ask for a fire risk assessment following Grenfell, so this is something that you'll also need to do. So once ready, you fill that form in, you just need to pay the fee. You'll end up with a HMO officer reaching out. They'll come to the house, they'll have a look at it, they'll run through any additional changes that you may need to implement or you may have missed. Then the HMO officer should grant you a draft HMO license, and if there's no objections within a 14 to 21 day period, they'll issue you a formal HMO license. This license will last for 5 years. Following this, you'll need to reapply for your HMO license and also provide additional certification what you did on your initial application. One of the biggest stumbling blocks is planning permission, Article 4, approval and licensing. Now, all three of these are important, but let me explain the differences between them. Planning permission, Article 4. Now, with the rise of HMOs and a lot of antisocial behaviour, typically around universities, many councils up and down the country have implemented Article 4 directives. I think within London, out of the 32 boroughs, 28 of them have actually implemented some form of Article 4 directive. Now, what does Article 4 mean, I hear you asking? Article 4 means councils can restrict people using permitted development rights to make a certain type of property. So in this case, a HMO. Now, if you did want to make a HMO within an Article 4 area, you'll need to apply for planning permission. However, the chances of getting that application approved is slim. For the following reasons: you'll need to show adequate parking arrangements are there. So you typically need to show you've got 1 parking space per 2 tenants. So if it's a 6-bedroom house, you need 3 car parking spaces. If you don't have that car parking spaces, you'll need to ensure you've got cycle storage, or that you're close to certain transport links. You may have to actually get a transportation report done. You also need to show that you've got adequate living space, amenity space in terms of garden and so on. So you'll tend to find a lot of the HMOs that were converted previously, there were a lot more smaller houses and they didn't actually have the parking, the amenity space. So those properties today probably wouldn't actually get granted planning permission. However, one of the benefits of Article 4 directive is if you actually have a running HMO and Article 4 directive comes in, you typically see the value of that house increasing by 25%. And the reason it actually increases is because it gets rid of any new entrants. And when you get rid of any new entrants, the demand for that type of property actually increases. And we've seen ourselves in the areas that we operate, when Article 4 directive has come in, our properties are typically worth 25% more than a neighbouring area that doesn't have that directive. Before we continue the video, guys, we've got a HMO training day, January 2024. More details are in the description. We hope to see you there. We wouldn't recommend a beginner buying in an Article 4 directive area. And to be honest, we don't buy in an Article 4 directive area ourselves. And the simple reason for it is so difficult to actually get that planning permission approved. Even when planning has failed for us and we were confident of getting that planning, it's actually taken us to appeal this decision and go to the planning inspectorate for this to get approved. And this could typically take over a year. So I would recommend sticking to areas where it's still permitted development to convert a house to a HMO. So here's some tips when looking for houses to convert to HMOs. Well, firstly, have a look at the floor plan of any property that you're looking at. See, by just simply printing that floor plan out, are you able to reconfigure roughly for that property to become a 6-bedroom HMO? If not, have a look at, do you have space to the right-hand side, left-hand side, rear, or the loft to actually add any additional space, which will then reach your target of those 6 rooms. We typically look at Street View. Using Street View is a great tool. It saves you having to make a site visit and wasting any time. You can actually go down using Street View, see if you've got any lofts that have been converted, also by using Google Earth as well, just seeing it from if there's any dormers there. This will ensure that you have that head height and it's not a wasted trip when you actually do come to have a look at that property. Work with people that have done it before. So anyone that we work with, whether it be architects, mortgage brokers, solicitors, we ensure that they've previously done some type of HMO transaction. This ensures I can rely on their experience and their expertise during the purchasing, development and refinancing process. HMO register. Now, all councils have to have a register of all licensed HMOs within the borough. This is free to download and you should find this in the HMO sector of the council website. Now, when you go on there, you can see, okay, on the road that you're looking at, are there any HMOs there already? If so, how many rooms do they have? You may be able to have a look at planning history to see what they've done, and therefore you'll be able to know, well, they've got a 6-meter rear extension on this. I think I'll be able to get the same. They've actually gone into the loft. Okay, that will ensure I will be able to do the same. And it also allows you, when you make your visit to the property, to actually look at the neighbouring properties and get some ideas there. And typically you want to actually look at the properties that have the least amount of rooms on that road, Therefore, you can ensure by adding additional rooms and adding that additional floor space, you're actually increasing the value of the property significantly, and you'll be able to pull out a lot more of your money once the project's done. Up until 2018, there was no strict room size, so some people were actually renting out rooms as small as 4 square meters or even less. So the government came up and said minimum room size needs to be 6.51 square meters at a minimum of 1.5 meter height. So this actually made a lot of these older HMOs redundant, where they had a lot more smaller rooms, and then they either had to reconfigure or sell. So when you're actually designing your HMO, ensure that you're going to get a minimum of 6.51 square meters. Ideally, you want to have around 10 square meters, because what we found is when you have that, you achieve a very good price per square meter for that room. Now, if you guys would like to know how we've built one of the most successful HMO portfolios within the UK, where we've won multiple awards for the work that we've actually been doing, we're going to be running an in-person training day on the 13th of January 2024. Links will be in the bio below. Now, this is what you can actually expect to learn on the day. Insights from experts within the industry, including council HMO inspectors, real-life case studies of HMO success, interactive workshops for practical tools to learn the HMO blueprint that we've implemented at Savoys. Finally, and most importantly, networking with like-minded individuals, where you'll build relationships with those people and start that journey together. So if you're interested in attending this in-person training day, the link's in the screen or in the bio below. And for the rest of you guys, please subscribe and like, and we look forward to seeing you again.